I think the most important thing is to explain to the people that one can change a corrupt system.
I am very pleased to have been invited by the Center for Governance and Transparency, because these are actually the themes to which I have committed myself since quite a number of years. In fact, I believe strongly that we need new strategies and new approaches to governance in order to have sustainable development of a more peaceful, of a more equitable world. Let me start out by making a rather provocative statement. I would say we are faced right now with a system of governance failure. I believe that in particular at the global level, but also at the national and local level, we are faced with governance failure because we are following a paradigm of governance which is very much based on the sovereign national state, on the democratic mandate which governments of nation states have in order to shape our lives. And in my opinion, this emphasis on the nation state, on state governments, does not serve us anymore to create a world which is sustainable, which is fair, which is peaceful. And my thesis is that a new actor of governance has appeared with a lot of strength, with a lot of power, with a lot of wisdom, a lot of courage, but also with a lot of risks. And that actor is organized civil society. So I will try to show to you, in particular based on my own experience in fighting global corruption, how a cooperation, a coalition between the traditional actors of governance, that is nation states and their international organizations, working together with the private sector, globally, but also in many local situations, can profit from working very closely and opening up to a strong cooperation with a powerful, organized civil society. I will come, hopefully, to the conclusion that this is not only a useful combination, a magical triangle of solving major problems which none of the actors can solve alone, which applies not only to fighting corruption, but which applies also to the other instances of failing governance, such as human rights violations and environmental destruction and so on.
Well, the interesting thing is that some people distinguish between their ethics as an individual and their ethics in their business or in politics.
Let me again refer to what I call failing governance. Failing governance is, in my opinion, evident in a situation where the outcome of governance is miserable. In fact, where the outcome is unacceptable, where the outcome is simply a catastrophe. And that's what we have. We have a world in which about 1 billion people are living below the absolute poverty line. We have a world in which about 1 billion people don't have access to drinking water. We have a world in which about twice this number, more than 2 billion people, don't have access to sanitation, for instance. And therefore, women and children die. 10 million children die before the age of 5 in a world in which there's so much resource available to mankind. This is something which we see time and again in many parts of the world, and what I will argue is that this has been largely created through corruption, through grand corruption. Corruption is at the same time the consequence of poor governance, as it is the reason for poor governance. So it is a vicious circle, a self-fulfilling negative circle downwards unless one does something about it.
I'm sure every Argentinian is ashamed when he is involved in corruption, because they know that this is wrong, you know. And therefore I think one should have campaigns reminding the people of the damages of corruption in a utilitarian way, but also reminding them of the ethical code which says corruption is evil, because in all 7 world religions corruption is condemned as evil. So there's no religion which allows the leaders in a country to accept bribes, to take wrong decisions.
Now, what does this mean? Some people say, and in fact I had some conversations yesterday with some politicians here in Argentina, that corruption is inherent in the culture of some people, that corruption is so systemic that it's futile to do something about this. But I simply do not accept this. I mean, many negative actions are inherent in people. We are all human, and yet you fight against it. You don't allow, for instance, rape. You don't allow murder. You don't allow robbery, only because this is inherent in people. And of course, if the system is created within which corruption is successfully countered, then you can deal with this, and you have to deal with it. And the World Bank has estimated that every year $1,000 billion are stolen through corruption. $1,000 billion. Now this is a huge amount of money, but I'm saying it is only the tip of the iceberg, because the damage done through corruption goes much beyond the $5 million or $10 million or $20 million paid to a corrupt Latin American politician or corrupt African president or minister. The damage done is the wrong decision taken, the perversion of economic decision making, of economic policies. This is what creates the misery in the world, which I mentioned in the beginning. This is what creates the anger and the violence and the conflicts which are being created worldwide through corruption. And in my opinion, one cannot condone this. The hope lies with a powerful role of organized civil society as part of a coalition. I would call it an antagonistic coalition between these 3 actors of governance.
You know, they cannot fight corruption alone, the NGOs either. So they need governments, and they need the civil, and they need the private sector. They need good leaders in the private sector, you know, not only like Bill Gates, but also like other leaders. And it's this sort of synergy between these 3 different actors which brings about solutions in some situations, not in all situations, but in many. And I've witnessed this myself in fighting corruption.
So what do we need? In my opinion, we should empower civil society to join the other actors of governance. We should empower them to become constructive partners, independent partners in finding solutions where governments alone and the private sector alone cannot find solutions by themselves. If these challenges are met by civil society organizations, I feel that they can become an extremely important partner for governments and for the private sector in order to create a world which is more fair, which is more peaceful, which is more equitable, more sustainable, and can create a better world for our children and grandchildren.
I also believe that if you have integrity in a government, if you have honesty, if you have proper decisions which are not distorted by corruption, then you will have wonderful services for the people. And I think in particular in a country which is as rich as Argentina is, you know, you have fantastic resources, you have very educated people, you have a wonderful nature, you know, you have the best wines of the world, you know, you have mineral deposits all over the world, you have oil and gas, you know, since many years. All of this should make you one of the richest and the most happy countries of the world, you know, and that this is not happening has to do with mismanagement.